Hello there, welcome back to Talking Europe on France 24. Now it is just about 16 years now since we said au revoir to the franc, auf Wiedersehen to the Deutschmark and arrivederci to the lira, as well as all the rest. Nowadays, euro notes and coins are part of daily life for 330 million people in 19 of Europe's 28 member states. Now, the head of the European Commission, Jean-Claude Juncker, says the euro is stable and successful. But there's no doubt it has been battered and bruised by the global financial crisis that began just about a decade ago. So what then is the future for Europe's common currency? What plans are in the pipeline to keep things stable? And how might those plans impact on the tens of millions of people who have their savings, mortgages, paychecks and credit bills in euros? I'm very pleased today to speak to European Commissioner Valdis Dombrovskis. Hello, thanks for being with us.
Hello.
Also Vice President of the European Commission. You're in charge of the Euro, Social Dialogue, Financial Stability and Services and the Capital Markets Union. That's quite a broad dossier. And as we record this interview, you've just launched your proposals on how to deepen and complete monetary union, banking union, capital markets union in Europe. How long has all this work been in the pipeline for you?
Well, indeed, it was a major package which we just proposed to complete the economic and monetary union, as well banking union and capital markets union. And it must be said that this work has been ongoing ever since the new Commission took the office, because there was a work on 5 Presidents' report in 2015. It was followed by our reflection paper on deepening of EMU in May, and now with a package of proposals which we put forward. So this work had been ongoing already for several years.
Now, Jean-Claude Juncker himself has got a very nice visual metaphor that our viewers might enjoy. He says, he has said in the past, the eurozone is like a house that was built over many decades, but only partially finished when a storm hit, talking about the financial crisis, I assume. The walls and the roof had to be hurriedly stabilised. That's a vivid picture, not a very pretty picture. What refurbishments are you planning to the eurozone house? What are the main refurbishments anyway?
To continue on this metaphor, then the best time to repair the roof is when the sun is shining, and that's exactly what we are proposing. We are currently in a good economic situation. We are in the 5th year of economic growth. All 28 member states are back to growth. Employment level in Europe is highest ever. Unemployment is almost down to pre-crisis levels. Confidence is highest in the decade. So one can say, indeed, we must use this opportunity to ensure that this economic growth is sustainable and lasting. So our package of proposal basically has 3 main goals. One is to strengthen the resilience of eurozone economy, to making it more robust to potential economic shocks. Second, if economic shocks still are coming, we are enhancing our crisis management tools at EU level, so to better overcome the crisis. And third is to restart the process of convergence between both within and among euro area countries.
OK, well, I might continue the house metaphor because I think it's quite useful. You talked about shocks coming, so perhaps some earthquakes under our house. The Commission's talked about making a better and fairer life for all of its citizens. I imagine a lot of people, say in Greece, might say that efforts to keep the eurozone house together up to now have caused them quite a lot of pain through austerity. Now, I know that in your new proposals, you're talking about investment support for countries that are under strain. Is this an admission that austerity hasn't really been the solution that it was thought to be at the beginning?
We need to find the right balance between sustainability of the public finances on one hand and need to sustain the economic growth in another hand. And for this we actually need a set of policies. I would say it goes beyond our work on deepening of EMU because it concerns the whole European Union. So if you look at our current economic policy priorities, those are to stimulate investment, structural reforms to modernize our economies, and still responsible fiscal policies, because you can only have sustainable growth if you have sustainable public finances. What we are proposing specifically in our deepening of EMU package is European investment protection scheme, which is indeed there to protect the level of investment in countries facing asymmetric economic shocks. Because it's often so that when crisis hit, investment is the first item to be cut from the budgets, and then it makes the recovery more difficult.
This is all going to be discussed by the heads of state and government at the next European Council summit in a couple of days' time. But as we speak, there is still political uncertainty in Germany. Is that a concern as you launch these proposals, perhaps a break on this process that, as you've said, you've been working on for quite some time?
It must be said that European Union is union of 28 democracies, and there's always elections or coalition building somewhere, but this doesn't really stop our work, so we need to move forward. So we think the time frame which has been set, we believe this is a realistic time frame, and European Commission is ready to work with this in mind.
On a similar theme, something we've talked about time and again in the last few months has been what looks to some like splits between perhaps the older, more established members of the EU and particularly the central and eastern states that are newer members. Once again, do you see that that could again perhaps be a bit of a break on this process of reforms? There is a major imbalance, isn't there, between the size and the wealth of some of those older economies and the much smaller, newer member states' economies?
Well, that's why it's so important when we discuss deepening of economic and monetary union not to create new rifts. So that's why one of the guiding principles in our package was to preserve the unity of European Union without undermining the integrity of European single market and being open and transparent to non-eurozone countries. So when we discuss different initiatives, for example, the mentioned European Investment Protection Scheme or reform delivery tool to support structural reforms in member states, it's primarily for eurozone, but it's open to other countries which wish to join. And we are also proposing a dedicated convergence facility for those non-eurozone countries which work towards euro adoption. And with this, actually, European Commission is taking more proactive stance to support those non-eurozone countries which are working to join the eurozone, so that they are ready for that and that they can prosper once they are inside eurozone.
Of course, there are several states that are wanting to join the eurozone, but as things stand, we do still have this sort of split between eurozone, non-eurozone countries, including the ones that have said already, Denmark, Sweden, that they don't want to be in the eurozone. Would it be simpler to achieve the aims that you're talking about if simply everybody who was in the European Union had the euro currency as well? Is that perhaps the ultimate goal?
Well, that's indeed the ultimate goal. And if you look at the treaty, all member states except Denmark, well, and UK, but there's a process of Brexit anyway ongoing, are actually obliged to join a euro. There are no strict deadlines associated with this, so member states still can choose their pace. But ultimately, all those member states except Denmark should be joining Eurozone.
We've got some news in the last couple of days about who's going to be taking some of this policy forward, at least. New head of the Eurogroup, Mario Centeno, who's just been elected within the last couple of days. We've prepared a bit of a report for you back in the France 24 newsroom about the new head of the Eurogroup.
Outgoing President Jeroen Dijsselbloem had words of advice for his successor.
Keep the Eurogroup together and united. It's the only way we take decisions in the Eurogroup.
Dijsselbloem spent just shy of 5 years at the helm of the group. In that time, several countries, notably Greece, teetered on the edge of bankruptcy, and the euro itself came under threat. Today, the zone's economy is growing again, and for some, that's thanks to austerity. Germany is the bloc's biggest economy, the largest contributor to bailouts, and therefore the loudest voice. But since the departure of Wolfgang Schäuble, austerity policies have lost their biggest champion. Now, with the expected departure of the UK, France wants to bring the group closer together by integrating policies and decisions across eurozone states.
The new president must be willing to work deeply on the eurozone in order to strengthen it. Secondly, among his tasks there will also be the conclusions of the Greek programme. Third point, and it's essential for me, is to work to reinforce the democratic responsibility of the Eurogroup.
Portugal's socialist finance minister Mário Centeno, the bloc's new leader, has a lot on his plate.
And let's hear from Mário Centeno himself. This is him speaking just a few minutes after he was elected Eurogroup president.
It's an honor because of the relevance of this group, of the quality of all my colleagues, of the importance of the job we have to carry over the next couple of years. We have a very unique time window to prepare or to further prepare our economies and our societies better. We are very much focused on that.
There we go, the new Eurogroup chief, Mário Centeno. He is from Portugal. He is the first Eurogroup head from a southern European country. And we know that Portugal's gone through some painful austerity and a bailout programme. What difference do you think it might make, the fact that he's from a southern European country?
Well, first of all, I would like to congratulate Mário Centeno on election as a Eurogroup president, and indeed there is a lot of work ahead of us, including on the deepening of EMU package, which we are discussing. The position of the Eurogroup president is not assigned to any specific region in the EU, so it was a election, which was open election with several candidates, and he is the one who gets the support of most of the ministers. So he is, of course, very qualified as an economist. He is well regarded as a finance minister. So I think he can be a good Eurogroup president.
Some other recent news concerning your area of work that's actually sparked quite a bit of debate recently. We've got this new list of tax havens that's been published by the European Union. What impact will it actually have of putting the names of countries and territories on a list?
It's not the Commission's list, it's a list of member states. So it's a list published by the Council, and it was decided indeed in ECOFIN Council. Well, Commission was assisting member states in this work, but ultimately the decision of which countries end up on the list, it's a decision of the member states. So what we have now, it's 17 countries on the list, and then there are more than 40 countries which are on so-called commitments list. Those are countries which also don't meet tax good governance standards, but which have taken concrete commitments to do the necessary adjustments in their tax system to avoid ending up in the EU blacklist. So now we'll be following those commitments. There are several deadlines. There is a 1 year's deadline for developed countries. There's 2 years deadline for developing countries. So this is not a final list. This is a list which will continue to evolve, and European Commission will help member states to monitor this process.
But what actual consequences are there for countries that are on the list?
Well, countries which are on the list will be facing the countermeasures, or so-called defensive measures. Well, from European Commission point of view, we think that there is still further work needed in actually, if you want, beefing up those defensive measures. There are also some steps which will be taken at EU level, basically restricting the channeling of funds through those legislations, so they will not be able to use EU funding to the same extent, except for development aid.
Now, there has been some criticism, notably from the Greens group in the European Parliament, that the European Union's credibility is damaged by the countries and territories that were omitted from either the black or the grey list, as it's been called. For example, the Cayman Islands, a British offshore territory, featured heavily in the Paradise Papers. It's not on the blacklist. Close partners like Switzerland. What's your response to that criticism?
That's why I was outlining. This is a list which was set by the EU member states. So it's a council which is to explain why one or another legislation or country ended or didn't end up in the list. In any case, this was a process where the letters were sent to many countries. They went through the screening process. They came with a specific commitments, and based on this, member states eventually decided which countries are on a blacklist and which countries are in commitments list and which are not.
And could other countries be added to these lists?
Well, certainly, as I said, this is a list which is going to evolve, so I would not exclude the possibilities that the countries could be added if they slip away. For example, if they are deemed right now compliant with the tax good governance standards, but if they slip away from those standards.
All right, so we'll have to keep a close eye on that. Unfortunately, that is all we've got time for. Thank you very much for talking us through all these proposed changes for the eurozone in the next years ahead. Valdis Dombrovskis, European Commissioner, thanks for your time.
Thank you.
And thank you very much for watching this latest edition of Talking Europe. We'll see you very soon, once again, on France 24.
Sur France 24, la nuit, on est très fiers d'accompagner les Amériques dans leurs soirées, de voir l'Asie se réveiller, et on est là jusqu'à ce que Paris s'éveille.
Sur France 24, l'Afrique, c'est chic.
In Live from Paris, our correspondents around the world keep you up to date.
Vous êtes déjà plusieurs millions et de plus en plus nombreux à suivre France 24 sur les réseaux sociaux.
من الطبيعي أن يكون شعارها الحرية وخاصة حرية التعبير في بلد حرية التعبير.